Gentleman back here.
David Herbert Donald's book on Lincoln is one of my favorites. Is there any others that you, in terms of biographies?
That was a magnificent book, wasn't it? Won the Pulitzer Prize, just tremendous. And I'll be showing my age a little bit here, but one of the ones I liked was Stephen B. Oates with Malice Toward None, just one volume. But I thought that was really, really good. And I first got my big interest in Lincoln by reading Sandburg's Lincoln, which I think is fantastic. It's, and always will be. And it's a classic, but it's thick. I mean, there's how many volumes are there? There's 6 volumes. But those are the two that I would recommend. Yes?
Well, Lincoln was facing a huge issue with the Civil War, but what was his foreign policy at that time?
What was his foreign policy? Stay out of wars with foreign powers. He pretty much, I don't really know the answer to that question, so I don't want to even speculate. I mean, a historian could probably tell you a lot more about that, of the period, but I got the impression that Lincoln was really focused on winning the Civil War. And there's a story that the Confederacy tried to enlist the aid of the British, to help them. And then there's a story, I think, that a couple of English agents were captured on a Confederate vessel, or something like that. Yeah, okay, so it did happen. And so Lincoln was presented with this problem. What is he going to do with these English commissioners? And they wanted, there were people that wanted Lincoln to string them up, and, because it was a traitorous act and all this. And it was Christmas. And Lincoln listened to this. This is a really great story. Lincoln said, well, what are you going to do about this? And, and Lincoln said, this reminds me of those 2 bulldogs, out in a field, and they would run across this fence all day long on both sides of this fence, barking at each other and yapping at each other, until finally one day they came to a hole in the fence big enough to let either one of them through. And what do you think they did? They turned tail and ran in the opposite direction as fast as they could. He said, now England and America are like those bulldogs. And he let them go. Yes, sir.
Would you comment about the First Lady in the White House?
Well, Mary Todd Lincoln gets a lot of bad press these days. And that started when Lincoln's law partner, Herndon, wrote this scathing book about Mary Todd Lincoln. And they didn't get along at all. And a lot of what he wrote wasn't true, from what I understand. But Mary Lincoln had some problems. She was later committed to an asylum by her son, Robert Todd Lincoln. But she lost a 4-year-old son, and then she lost Willie, an 11-year-old son in the White House. And she had some serious issues. And that's another thing that Lincoln had to deal with. Can you imagine? And he actually, one day, she was so distraught she couldn't get over Willie's loss that Lincoln actually took her over to a White House window and pointed to, what is it, the St. Mary's or Bellevue? There's a mental institution that was in view of the White House back then. And he said, look, if you don't get your act together, that's where you're going to end up. And then there's the stories about Lincoln getting these bills for all of these, what he called flub dubs. You can get a bill for $25,000 for stuff in the White House. He said, my soldiers can't afford blankets, and we're spending money on flub dubs. So it was a tough thing, and I'm really not qualified to tell you too much. But I'm more than not. I have sympathy for Mary Todd Lincoln, and a great appreciation for what Lincoln endured among his personal life as well as his public life. Yes, sir.
Could you give 2 or 3 key events in Lincoln's life before he became president that probably helped shape his ability to be the leader that he was when he was president?
He had this innate ability. He just wanted to learn He was curious, and he was a natural learner, and he taught himself so much. And there was a period of time there where he kind of disappeared. And the story goes that he said, I'm going to prepare myself, and if my opportunity comes, I'll be ready. And he kind of took this time to educate himself on a lot of different things, and I think that preparation really helped him and honed his ability. I also believe that the Lincoln-Douglas debates helped him tremendously for practice on speaking and to get really good at it. And you know, if you read the Lincoln-Douglas debates, there's a lot in there that was extemporaneous, but there's a lot that he prepared for. And you can almost tell, once you read it enough, you can tell what he took into those debates that was prepared and that he had memorized. I think that helped him tremendously. I also believe that him losing the Senate race, which was decided back then by the, what was it, state Senate, I guess. If it had been to the people, he would have been elected, I think. Wasn't the Illinois State Senate in the news today? I haven't heard how that's turned out yet, but I'm going home to Illinois and I'll find out, I guess. Just I hope that answers your questions, a few things that come to mind.
One question, what would have been Lincoln's role, leadership role as a former president?
Well, I don't know. If I was a future president, I certainly would be asking him questions and listening to what he had to say. You know, I mean, he came to pull people with him. He came to earn people's respect, and even the South respected him. Many people in the South. So I think he would have been a great statesman. I don't know what he would have done afterwards. I have no idea. You know, he probably would have just gone back to Illinois, practice law, would be my guess, but I really don't know. It'd be interesting to think about it, though, isn't it? Yes, sir.
You mentioned Lincoln's deep faith. Who or what was there in his life that had the most influence in developing the character that you spoke of?